Ethan Cole was the kind of man people wrote about in glossy magazines. At 38, he was the CEO of one of the largest tech firms in Chicago. His sharp jawline, perfectly tailored suits, and smooth charm made him look untouchable. To the world, he had it all: power, wealth, and a picture-perfect family. His wife, Olivia, was the kind of woman who carried grace like a second skin. She never needed to prove anything. She was steady, warm, and had been his anchor long before the company was born. But behind the glass walls of his corner office, the man who had it all was breaking the one thing he should have treasured most. Her name was Sienna. She was younger, bold, intoxicating in a way that made him feel reckless again. What started as late-night conversations after meetings slipped into hotel rooms and stolen weekends. Ethan told himself it was temporary, something he could control, but the more time he gave to Sienna, the more his marriage cracked in silence. Olivia wasn't naive. She noticed the missed dinners, the scent of expensive perfume that wasn't hers, the way he avoided her gaze when she asked about his trips. But she stayed quiet, watching him with the calm patience of someone who had once believed love could weather anything. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening. Olivia had prepared dinner, his favorite, roasted salmon with garlic butter. She waited, candles lit, music low, their daughter Emma tucked into bed early so they could have time together. But the clock struck 9, then 10, then midnight. Ethan never walked through the door. Instead, she saw it the next morning. A photo splashed across a gossip site. Ethan Cole stepping out of a downtown hotel with Sienna by his side, his hand resting possessively on her back. It wasn't the scandal that gutted her. It was the choice. He hadn't just slipped. He hadn't just made a mistake. He had chosen. When Ethan came home that night, tired and carrying the arrogance of a man who believed apologies could fix anything, Olivia was waiting. Her suitcase was already packed. "Liv, don't do this," he said, dropping his briefcase on the floor. "We can talk." "There's nothing left to say," she replied, her voice steady. "You made your choice. Now I'm making mine." He reached for her arm, but she pulled away. Her eyes weren't angry, they were empty, and that cut him deeper than any scream could have. "Olivia, listen to me. It's not what it looks like." She cut him off with a bitter laugh. "Do you even hear yourself? It's exactly what it looks like. I stayed silent when you came home late. I stayed silent when I smelled her perfume on your shirt. But I won't stay silent anymore." Her phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up, ignoring the way his face twisted in desperation, and walked out. That night, Ethan called. Once, twice, dozens of times. His messages filled her voicemail, pleading, apologizing, swearing he would change. But Olivia didn't answer. She turned off her phone, tucked it into her purse, and disappeared. The next morning, he woke to silence. No coffee brewing, no sound of Emma's laughter, no trace of Olivia anywhere. At first, Ethan thought she was bluffing. She'd be at her sister's house or maybe at a hotel, cooling off. He told himself she would come back once she'd had time to breathe. But days turned into weeks, and Olivia stayed gone. She ignored every call, every message, every delivery of flowers he sent. Even Emma, who he expected to be his lifeline to her, wouldn't reveal where her mother had gone. The powerful man who had built empires with contracts and mergers suddenly found himself powerless. He could close $1 billion deal in a day, but he couldn't find the woman who had once shared his bed. The walls of his penthouse, once filled with warmth, now felt like a mausoleum. Every room echoed with her absence. He sat at the dinner table, staring at the empty chair across from him, the silence pressing down until it was unbearable. Meanwhile, Olivia found refuge in a quiet coastal town a few hours away. She rented a small house near the ocean, far from flashing cameras and headlines. Each morning, she walked along the shore, letting the waves wash away the pain. She didn't cry anymore. She simply rebuilt herself piece by piece, determined not to be defined by his betrayal. But Ethan's desperation grew. He started sending private investigators, but Olivia was smart. She had erased her trail carefully, using cash instead of cards, leaving no footprints he could follow. Every night, he replayed their last conversation in his head. Her calm voice, the way she had walked out without a tear. He had always thought she would fight for him, that she would scream, rage, throw things. But she hadn't. She had simply walked away. And that, more than anything, terrified him. Because it meant she was gone for good. The climax of his downfall came on a stormy night. Ethan had been drinking, staring at the photo of Olivia he kept in his office drawer. Rain lashed against the windows as thunder rolled overhead. His phone buzzed. It was Sienna. "Why haven't you called me?" she demanded. "I'm not just your distraction. You said you'd choose me, Ethan." But hearing her voice filled him with nothing but disgust. The words that spilled out shocked even him. "I did choose you. And in doing that, I lost everything that mattered. I lost her. And you're not worth it." He hung up before she could reply, his hand shaking as the realization hit him like a blade. Ethan Cole, the man who could buy anything, had finally discovered the one thing he couldn't buy back. His wife's love, and he didn't even know where to begin finding her. The storm outside Ethan's penthouse had passed, but inside him, it raged on. Days bled into nights, weeks stretched thin, and the emptiness only grew heavier. His calls to Olivia still went unanswered. The private investigators he hired kept returning with nothing but dead ends. It was as if she had melted into thin air, leaving no trace. At first, Ethan threw himself into work. If he couldn't fix his marriage, maybe he could drown in his empire. But even the boardroom no longer gave him comfort. Deals slipped through his fingers because his mind wasn't there. Reporters began whispering about his downfall. And behind closed doors, some of his rivals sharpened their knives, ready to take advantage of the distracted CEO. But Olivia never wavered. In the small coastal town where she had found refuge, she built a quiet life. She spent mornings walking the shoreline, afternoons painting in the little studio she rented, and evenings cooking simple meals while Emma read at the kitchen table. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. Still, there were nights when memories invaded, the way Ethan had once held her hand in crowded rooms, the promises he had whispered when they were young, long before power had corroded him. But she pushed those memories aside. She refused to be a woman defined by betrayal. Back in Chicago, Ethan's desperation turned into obsession. He stopped seeing Sienna entirely. She tried to lure him back with sultry texts and dramatic ultimatums, but he deleted her number. He couldn't look at her without feeling the full weight of his mistake. One night, he drove aimlessly, ending up at the church where he and Olivia had been married. He sat in the empty pew, staring at the altar, remembering the way she had smiled at him in her lace gown, her eyes full of trust. He broke down. For the first time in decades, Ethan Cole, the untouchable CEO, wept like a child. He prayed, not for his company, not for success, but simply for one more chance to tell her he was sorry. But Olivia remained hidden. Months passed. Rumors swirled in the media. Ethan's marriage had crumbled, his wife had left, his mistress had disappeared. The empire he had built was suddenly unstable. His board pressured him to step back, investors grew nervous, and Ethan faced a truth he had never considered: without Olivia, his entire world was hollow. Then came the twist. Late one evening, Ethan returned to his penthouse after another long, empty day. As he stepped inside, he froze. On the dining table was an envelope. No one had access to his home but him. His heart raced as he tore it open. Inside was a single letter in Olivia's handwriting. "Ethan, stop looking for me. You won't find me unless I want to be found. I gave you years of my life, my love, and my loyalty. You gave your choice to someone else. Don't waste your time trying to drag me back into the life you broke. I don't hate you, but I don't love you anymore. Olivia." The letter was dated 2 weeks prior. Which meant, she had been here. In this very home, she had slipped in quietly, leaving her words like a ghost leaving behind a whisper. Ethan's chest tightened. He sat at the table all night, staring at the letter. It wasn't anger that consumed him, it was the finality. She hadn't written in fury. She hadn't cursed him. She had simply let him go. That was worse than hatred. But Ethan wasn't ready to surrender. The next morning, he called Emma's school. She answered the phone herself, 15 years old now, her voice sharper, older than he remembered. "Emma, please, I need to see you," he begged. There was silence on the line. Then she said, "Mom doesn't want you to find us. And honestly, I don't either." The line clicked dead. For the first time, Ethan realized he hadn't just lost his wife. He was losing his daughter too. The weeks that followed broke him further. Sienna sold her story to a tabloid, painting herself as the woman scorned. Business partners began pulling out of deals, not wanting to be tied to his scandal. His company stock dipped. Ethan had once thought his empire was indestructible. Now it was collapsing like a house of cards. But the lowest point came when he found himself at a diner on the outskirts of the city one night, drinking black coffee and staring blankly at the counter. He overheard 2 women at the next booth talking about a new art teacher in a coastal town, a woman with a teenage daughter, both of them quiet but kind. The description made his blood run cold. It was Olivia. Without hesitation, Ethan drove through the night until the highway turned into winding coastal roads. As dawn broke, he reached the town. And there, in front of a small art studio with a sign that read, Olivia's Colors, he saw her. She was standing by the door, sunlight catching her hair, her expression peaceful in a way he hadn't seen in years. For a moment, he couldn't breathe. He stepped out of the car, but as soon as Olivia saw him, her face hardened. "You shouldn't be here," she said, her voice firm but calm. "Olivia, please," he whispered. "Just, hear me out." She crossed her arms, shielding herself. "Why now, Ethan? Why after all this time?" "Because I've lost everything. The company, the money, the power, it means nothing. None of it matters without you." His voice cracked. "I was blind, I was arrogant, and I broke the only thing that ever mattered." Her eyes glistened, but she shook her head. "You think losing everything earns you forgiveness? That's not how this works." "Then what can I do?" he pleaded. "Tell me. I'll do anything. You can let me live," she replied softly. "That's what you can do. You made your choice, Ethan. And I made mine." He took a step closer, but she held up her hand. "Don't." In that moment, Emma appeared in the doorway of the studio. She looked at him with the same coldness Olivia had, her young face filled with disappointment. "Go home, Dad," she said. "We're fine without you." The words struck harder than any business loss, harder than any betrayal. His own daughter no longer wanted him. Ethan's chest heaved, but he nodded. For the first time, he understood. This wasn't a battle he could win with persistence or money. This was the price of his betrayal. He turned and walked back to his car, every step heavier than the last. He didn't look back, because he knew if he did, he'd break completely. Olivia watched him drive away, her heart aching but resolute. She had once loved him enough to forgive anything. But now, she loved herself enough not to. The climax ending, Ethan returned to Chicago, a shadow of the man he once was. The empire he had built eventually slipped through his fingers, swallowed by rivals who had been waiting for his weakness. The penthouse remained empty, the letter from Olivia the only reminder of what he had lost. He had chosen his mistress, and in doing so, he had lost his wife, his daughter, and his life as he knew it. Olivia, meanwhile, thrived. Her small art studio grew into a sanctuary, her paintings selling to tourists and locals alike. She and Emma built a new life, one free of betrayal, one filled with quiet happiness. The CEO who thought he controlled everything learned the hardest truth: some things, once broken, can never be repaired.